Good evening, all. Welcome to another episode of OmenG's Stupid Scary Stories. Today I'll be reading again from Connecticut Ghost Stories and Legends by Thomas D'Agostino and Arlene Nicholson. Today's tantalizing tale of terror: Gay City State Park. It is difficult to imagine that Gay City State Park was once a fully populated community of 25 families, a woolen mill, a Satanite mill, 2 grist mills, charcoal pits, a church, a general store, and other such amenities that could be found in the small hamlets that dotted the New England landscape at the time. Other than stone walls and foundations, there is not much evidence left to show that settlers once called this place their home. There are also the ghosts that occasionally remind explorers visiting the old town that not only were they once residents in the flesh, but they are eternally tenanted there in spirit. A small burial ground near the entrance of the park contains a few members of founding families that lie in repose. The stones are placed on either side of the burying yard facing each other. This lends credence to what history tells us about the 2 prominent families of Gay City and the differences they had toward one another. The original name for the village was Factory Hollow. A preacher named Elijah Andrus steered his congregation toward the wooded hollow in 1796. The northwest region of Hebron had been adequately settled about 100 years prior, but the Methodist minister was dead set on starting his own community for himself and his followers. One must remember that early New England towns were dominated by religion. In fact, many towns were either annexed or completely disbanded due to the lack of a meeting house being within an acceptable traveling distance. Religion was a main staple in the community, and Factory Hollow was no exception to that rule. Andrus suddenly abandoned his flock 4 years later due to disagreements and quarrels within the congregation. This left Reverend Henry P. Sumner as the new spiritual leader of the village. His grave among the scant stones in the burying ground near the entrance of the park. Also, in 1800, John Gay was chosen to head the new town's affairs. A major portion of the hollow was composed of the Gay family, so it seemed logical that they would have a majority of say in town's affairs. John's brother Ichabod also shared the responsibility of leadership, along with Reverend Sumner. This union did not work out as well as everyone thought it might. The 2 families had already been at odds with each other from the start, and matters only got worse with time. Reverend Sumner held church services twice a week, which to some was a bit too taxing on their time. To augment the attendance, rum was given to the men to quaff. It can be assured that the meetings had spirit to them, but the libations would prove to be the downfall of the sermons. Arguments and even fistfights became common during the meetings, so much so that many of the families began migrating away from the town, including several of the founding families. With only 8 years under their roofs, it appeared that the little hamlet was about to become a ghost town. In 1810, a woolen mill opened under the name of William Strong and Company. The town was flourishing, but another dark cloud would cloak prosperity. The War of 1812 between the United States and Britain broke out, and British blockades halted commerce, forcing the mill to close its doors. According to J.R. Cole's The History of Tolland County, Connecticut, Reverend Sumner took ownership of the mill until 1830. He ran it as the Lafayette Manufacturing Company until a dreadful conflagration reduced the building to a stone foundation. At this point, families packed their belongings and moved into cities to work in the larger factories. Dr. Charles Sumner, son of Henry Sumner, decided to erect another mill near the site of the old one. This time, it was for the production of rag paper. Residents, along with laborers from nearby towns, began the arduous task of transporting stones for the foundation. A dam and beautiful stonework canal were created to power the overshot wheel that would turn not only the machines in the mill, but the fate of the town. Unfortunately, the powers of the dark side did not wait very long to taint this massive undertaking. During the construction of the dam and canal, one worker studied the angle of the duct and concluded that the water was supernaturally flowing uphill toward the factory. He was reported to have dropped his tools and quit on the spot, calling the phenomenon the work of the devil. Others would follow in his wake, bringing the construction of the venture to a temporary halt. Finally, the mill opened, and Factory Hollow saw a slight incline in prosperity. But another struggle, the Civil War, would again play fate in the village. Many of the young men in town enlisted in the army. Most of these citizens were killed in the war, leaving a number of homes in Factory Hollow unoccupied and crumbling until a time when the elements of nature reclaimed the land. The paper mill burned in 1879, leaving the last vestige of the hamlet to the elements. Before long, trees and brush sprouted from the decaying cellar holes and foundations. Truman Porter was the last known resident of Factory Hollow. He too soon passed on, and Factory Hollow was no more. For the most part, Factory Hollow was now a true ghost town. Visitors to the site frequently found buttons near the ruins of the old factory building that came from the cloth rags used in making the paper that the mill produced. The last Sumner born in Factory Hollow was John Sumner. His son George became Lieutenant Governor of Connecticut, serving from 1883 to 1885. A plethora of notable citizens hailed from what is now known as Ghost Town. Charles Kellogg Gay married Polly Whaley, who claimed to be a direct descendant of the famous Sir Edward Whaley. F. Haldeman Sumner was an aide to General Johnson during the Battle of New Orleans in 1815. Dr. Cyrus Sumner was a well-respected surgeon in the War of 1812. Frank Sumner was the president of the Hartford, Connecticut Trust Company, and Colonel Benjamin Sumner commanded a regiment in the War of 1812. Another noted character of Factory Hollow was a preacher named Samuel Peters, a devoted Tory faithful to the throne of King George. A group called Sons of Liberty made him sign a declaration of repentance or lose his possessions. He moved to England shortly after, where he published a general history of Connecticut. Needless to say, it was a very one-sided view of the colonist life in Connecticut. He claimed that the pompous people of his former home out-poped the Pope and out-kinged the king. Emma P. Foster and her sister Alice acquired most of the overgrown ghost town, including 2,000 acres owned by Dr. Sumner. The Fosters were descendants of the Gay family. The old town became a state park in 1944 by will of the sisters. Most of the Sumner graves were moved to Gilead Hill Cemetery down the road. In 1953, the state appropriated 20,000 more acres for further development of the park. The name Gay City State Park came by request from none other than a descendant of the Sumner family. This act suggests that the two families may have long buried the hatchet and found eternal resolution to their differences. The spirits of the park did not have eternal resolution. Stories and reports flourish to this day of ghostly encounters and unseen forces that wander among the living who visit the haunted hamlet. There are two accounts of murders that took place in the old town during the previous centuries that may explain some of the ghosts that wander among the thickets. Just before the Civil War, a jewelry peddler came rolling into town on his usual route. Peddlers were common in those days and sold everything from tinware to top hats. Some even took to tinkering or repairs to augment their incomes. The salesman suddenly disappeared without a trace. Shortly after his disappearance, a human skeleton was discovered in one of the charcoal pits at the edge of town. Evidently, the purveyor of goods had a healthy sum of money on him that attracted the attention of some unsavory kind. No clues as to who was responsible for the crime ever turned up, and to this day, the murder remains unsolved. The peddler's ghost, as if seeking justice for his untimely demise, now roams the perimeter of the little hamlet. More than a few visitors have stumbled upon the old charcoal pit, where they have witnessed the ghastly sight of a glowing skeleton hovering just above the ground. The spectral skeleton is not the only permanent phantom of the old village. The spirit of a young man wanders among the thicket, eternally trying to appease his employer, centuries after they have both turned to dust. A teenage boy became apprenticed to the local blacksmith in hopes of someday becoming his successor. The blacksmith was a gruff, short-tempered man with not much patience for insubordination, but he took on the role as teacher to the young man. One day, the apprentice decided he was going to take the long way to the shop, stopping and enjoying the morning every chance he could. When he arrived at the forge, the blacksmith, having expected him to arrive at work on time, was steaming with rage. No one knows what exact words may have been exchanged, but the blacksmith lost his temper and hacked the boy to pieces with a butcher knife. Legend has it that he even lopped the poor soul's head off. The blacksmith was never brought up on charges, and the ghost of the apprentice now wanders among the woods, hastily making his way to some unknown destination, perhaps for fear of being tardy. Some have seen him running with his bloody head cradled under his arm. Paranormal investigator and reporter Lauren Nicholson paid a visit to Gay City State Park in the winter to see if the legends of the haunts held any weight. Here is what she told me. When I was investigating, there I saw and heard some very weird things. The strangest thing I saw was a black mist that disappeared quickly off to the side of a trail. The best way to describe it was about 4 feet off the ground and maybe 3 feet wide. It was solid in the middle but seemed transparent around the edges. The second weirdest thing was the other investigator and I were exploring the old mill site, and rocks and debris kept falling from the top of the wall to the ground, almost as if someone was standing there. We went in the middle of winter while the ground was still frozen, so I don't think it could have been the ground thawing or anything. I took some EVPs at the site, but nothing came up on the recorder. As we were walking up the pond, though, we did hear distinct voices coming from the mill site. We ran back and found no one. We even called out and no one answered. The last thing I wanted to mention was we did hear something walking in the woods. You could hear crunching in the snow. But we saw no animal and no people. It was just very strange. What was the strange black mist? May have been one of the ghosts of the park or another anomaly that is yet to be explained. Arlene and I paid few visits to Gay City and found it to be a fascinating place where the locals love to walk their dogs and hike the trails. We decided to hold our first vigil at the small graveyard, using dowsing rods, tarot cards, an EMF detector, a camera, and a digital recorder. We began to read the cards and work the rods in hopes of fielding questions about some personal history of the people who still tenant the town. We use these instruments merely to field questions that may be pertinent to the history of a place on both the personal level of those energies may still linger, and the area as a whole. We have achieved astonishing results in the form of both audio and perceptive evidence, although we must admit that the perceptive part would classify as more of a personal experience. The audio EVPs are much more tangible. We then made our way to the factory ruins, where we continued our quest to find more answers about the rise and demise of Factory Hollow. Arlene is a gifted reader and dowser who credits the results obtained to the surrounding atmosphere. She states that we are just an instrument in the process of communication and does not pretend to be psychic. Her powerful aura always manages to draw the living to her. Why not the spirit energy as well? We came up with a few interesting results in regards to the cards. The readings and dowsing rods must have stirred up some lingering energies, as we found that on both accounts there was someone who had gone from prominence to poverty at both places, and someone who had felt sad about the state of the town. As for the recorders, the ambient noise made it hard to obtain any real conclusive results short of the spirits shouting in our faces. Based on our visits and the testimony of many who have witnessed the haunted happenings at the park, it is safe to conclude that although we see it as a ghost town, the other side still sees it as alive to some degree. Now, Gay City State Park. What was my experience there, you ask? Do you ask? You do ask. Well, let me tell you, right? I'm going to tell you exactly what my experience there was. I was intrigued, interested. After reading this story in the book, I decided I must go here. The history in itself was interesting. You know, to actually see a ghost town in Connecticut. You know, when you think ghost towns, most of the time, you think of like old mining towns or towns in like the west in the desert that maybe the water dried up so the town left, or just, you know, you don't really think of there being ghost towns in New England. It's not really heard of, right? Especially one like this that at some point in history was prominent. I mean, there were mills and they made stuff, factories, you know what I'm saying? So it's weird, right? Interesting and weird. So, of course, I had to go, right? I had to go. I had to check this out for myself and once again explore the possibilities of paranormal and supernatural powers at play in our world. Now, wait a minute. I know what you're probably thinking, right? After what happened to you the last time, you know, headless horseman guy, you've heard about some kid here who's been walking around with his head in his arm. I don't necessarily believe that. Remember, I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical until proven wrong, right? Exactly. So, I get all my stuff together and I decide I'm gonna head out here. But I'm going to go at night this time, because why not? You know, scary shit happens at night, and they say a lot of this stuff is, you know, heard. So why not go at night? I'll go at like 12 midnight is what I said to myself. You know, I'm being bold, I'm being brave, especially with all the experiences I've had in the past. I'm being real brave. Brought somebody along with me this time. It was a couple of people actually, not just one, too. I found Jane and Jim again. You know, I said, hey, you guys worked out well the last time. Just keep her the fuck away from me. I don't want to get choked just in case there's some crazy, you know, female ghost that wants to choke the shit out of me and shit. I don't want to get choked. Yeah, but it wasn't ghost female that was choking you the last time. It was that Demon Azazel guy. You know, shit. I don't think we have to worry about him. That's what Jim said to me. So I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. So come on, let's go. So we all hop into their car. I'm not driving my car this time. We get in their car, a little minivan. All the equipment and everything we need, blah, 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 tents and shit, just in case we decide to camp out, right? Now, it's not cold. It's a regular, nice summer day. We go out there and start setting up our equipment and shit and everything. And, you know, we go to each of the different sites. We go to the old mill, you know, the old factory, the wheel, the little canal, the dam, you know, all this stuff. And we're just looking at, you know, just how you can imagine back during that time how this place was probably bustling with life. You know what I'm saying? Traders coming in and out, you know, peddlers here and there, traveling salesmen, you know, just normal everyday stuff that you would expect in a colonial town. And then one going into the 1800s, right? So check this out, right? We get to the cemetery, you know, where the stones are facing each other, you know, the warring families as they were. And immediately, Jim gets all stiff and rigid. Shit. I'm like, hey, Jim, what's going on, buddy? I said, step away from him, Jane. Step away. Could be some craziness happening. We don't want no people getting choked and smacked and shit. Jim turns around. He's like, did you hear that? Like, hear what? I didn't hear anything. He said, I heard a voice. He said, please don't. And then it ended. I said, so why'd you get all stiff like that? He said, because it kind of scared the shit out of me. I thought it was... You know, I thought you guys might have heard it. Like, no, I didn't hear anything, Jim. I didn't hear anything at all. Jane's like, no, I didn't hear anything either. You okay? Like, yeah. You didn't smoke anything before you came, did you? No, I saved that for later, Jim says. I think he might have had a little bit of wacky tobacco before we went into the woods. But who am I to judge? I don't know for sure if he did or didn't. He didn't smell like marijuana, so I'm going to assume that he didn't have any marijuana to smoke before, like he said. Anyway, so we decide, okay, since Jim heard something, let's start our investigation here in the graveyard, right? Makes sense. This is where we seem to be getting some activity going on. So we start there, right? We're sitting there, Jane, me, and Jim are holding hands. We're like saying stuff that you would say if you're trying to get ghosts to talk to you and shit. We light some candles and put them down on the ground and stuff, And I'm thinking to myself, the last time we did this, the last time we lit candles and shit and started holding hands, this chick started squeezing my hand like she was having a baby. And, I don't want that to happen again. So I'm like, listen, hold up. Let's try something a little bit different this time. Let's not hold hands. We'll just stand together in a circle, but let's not hold hands, just in case any craziness happens. I don't want to be, connected to you people and shit, right? So let's not do that. Jane's like, okay, that sounds fine, Jim's like, oh, shit, if you think it'll work, we'll do it that way. That's the way we're doing it, Jim. That's the way we're doing it, okay? Don't get snooty with me with your sarcasm. Keep your sarcasm to your fucking self. I don't think I like your language. I don't think I like your face. Well, then what'd you bring us here for? You brought me here. That's true. Well, let's begin, shall we? Okay, let's do this. So we all start, doing our little thing. We're talking, asking ghosts questions. Recorders are playing and shit. Cameras are on, infrared. We don't see anything, right? Nothing's going on. It's quiet. I'm beginning to think Jim is just talking shit. So I heard something just to get the old, juices flowing and get me all kind of riled up and nervous and shit. That's what I'm thinking. But then, right, I'm sitting there, we're talking to the ghost. I'm getting bored, but then all of a sudden, something tapped my shoulder, and I turned around, and there was nothing there. And like I said, Jim and Jane weren't behind me, so they wouldn't have been able to tap my shoulder without me seeing them reach over my fucking shoulder to tap it. So I was like, hey guys, you probably didn't feel me get tapped on the shoulder, obviously, because it's my shoulder and you wouldn't feel it. But is anybody else feeling a little bit just strange? I just have this weird feeling all of a sudden. Jim, is just like, I don't feel anything at all. In fact, everything seems fine to me. Let's continue. Jane's like, wait a minute, Jim. I'm kind of picking up something. There's a strange energy I'm feeling around me, swirling like a tornado. As soon as she said that, she shot in the fucking air about 5 feet and just stopped. And I know what you're thinking, right? Oh shit, they took over her again. No, it didn't take over her. It just floated her up in the air and all of a sudden pushed her and she went flying backwards about another 10 feet and then landed on the ground with a hard thud. Oh, shit, Jane! Ooh, that had to fucking hurt. God damn. She gets up, dusts herself off. She's like, I told you I felt something. I told you. Jeez, damn it, that fucking hurts. I'm like, you alright? Jim's like, I feel something too. I think that burrito I ate earlier is making its second appearance. What are you talking about, Jim? I need to go over there behind the tree and relieve myself because I think it's about to make its exit. And it's going to be an explosive one. I don't think you guys want to be around for that. No, god damn it, Jim, no we don't. In fact, we didn't even need that information. You could have just said you had to go use the motherfucking bathroom and went and use the motherfucking bathroom. You didn't have to tell us what the fuck's going on. Shit, it's a little bit too much information. Jim, damn. Go fucking take your shit, nasty bastard. Jim goes off to the woods, a little farther away. He obviously doesn't want to shit in the cemetery. But then I'm thinking to myself, right? How do we know exactly what is what in this ruins of a former town? Like, he could think that he's not shitting in the cemetery, could still be shitting in the cemetery. And if I was a ghost, if I was a ghost and you were shitting on my final fucking resting place, well, by all means, I'm gonna haunt you. I'm gonna haunt you something terrible and do some fucked up shit to you for shitting on my final resting place. Just so happens that where Jim took a shit, he didn't realize was the pit, charcoal, where they found the body of the jewelry peddler. And he took a fucking steaming hot, nasty, disgusting mud butt shit right in this fucking charcoal pit. I guess he thought it's kind of pit-like, so I could just sweep some leaves on top of it and it'll be okay, rather than putting a pile on some flat ground. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know why he would eat burritos and chimichangas and shit before doing an investigation in the middle of fucking nowhere. That's kind of dumb. I didn't eat anything at all. You know why? Because some of these things scare me to the point of wanting to shit myself. Therefore, if I have nothing in my stomach to pass through my bowels, the chances of me shitting my pantaloons is quite slim, if almost non-existent, right? Exactly. So anyway, while Jim's over there straining and blowing chunks, you hear the shit splattering on the ground. I hear this moan. While he's making his noises, I hear this moan. My ears perk up. Kind of like a dog's would if I had dog ears. But, human-wise, they perked up. I look at Jane. Jane looks back at me. She's like, you heard it too, didn't you? I'm like, yeah, I heard that shit. Even though I can hear him shitting and it's loud and disgusting. I heard that noise. What the fuck was that? Jim! What don't bother me, guys. I'm trying to take this shit. Oh, God damn it. No more Taco Bell for me, I swear. After he got that out of his mouth, he went silent. We heard the sound of something hit the dirt. Squishy dirt. Yeah, he fell in his own shit. It was gross. It was nasty as hell. We both ran over to see what was going on. And he's laid out, pants around his fucking ankles, you know what I'm saying, draws down, laying in his pile of moist, disgusting mud butt shit. Gross, nasty, stinking, disgusting. And he's like in some sort of a trance, just laying in his shit. I'm like, there is no way that some ghost didn't do that to him, because who in their right mind would lay in their own shit? It must have been the moan we heard. Then we heard something else. It was a stirring in the woods. Like steps running towards us. They were coming fast. We started to worry. Jane grabbed a hold of my arm. Oh my God. I'm looking at her like, hey, distance. You know what I'm saying? You took over before and tried to rip my fucking hand off and then tried to choke me. I'd prefer that you let go of me and move about a foot that way. You know what I'm saying? If something happens, we turn around and we fucking run. What about Jim? Fuck Jim. He probably just shit on some damn resting place of some spirit here. They're probably getting their fucking revenge. So when I hear the voice of, an old-timey person, who hath shitteth upon my head? That guy right there in the pit shitteth upon your head. Me and her, we're over that way, looking at tombstones and shit. We have nothing to do with this. Thou hast disrespected me in a way I cannot forgive. My face is covered in feces. The smell most terrible. Why hast thou done this? Why? There's a porta potty in the parking lot, the beginning of the park. To shitteth upon one's head and final resting place is a disrespect that should be met with the most terrible of punishments. It was at that time this figure of a man manifested himself in front of me and Jane. And it was like, once again, one of those old-timey colonial people. He was standing there. He had this, looked like a hammer, a mallet of some sort, old schoolish mallet, in his hand. And he's smacking his hand with it and shit, which one of you wants to go first? I said, go first for what? I just told you, as you can see, me and her have our clothes completely on us. Neither one of us took a shit on your fucking head. You see that guy down there in the pit, laid out in the shit? He shit. Don't fuck with him. Don't fuck with us. Don't have anything to do with this. Prefer if you just let us be, good sir. He was hearing none of it. He did some ghostly specter thing, and like her and I were both paralyzed. Couldn't move. Stuck standing there. Comes up to us with his hammer, and I'm thinking he's gonna like bash us with a ghost hammer. I don't know exactly what getting hit with a ghost hammer would feel like. I've never been hit with a ghost hammer before, but I wasn't trying to find out what it felt like. But that's not what happened. He didn't hit us with the ghost hammer. What he did was much worse. Now, I don't think anybody's ever had to deal with what we've had to deal with. But what Jane and I had to deal with was one of the most mind-frying, terrifyingly disgusting things that I've ever had to deal with in my life. Have anybody ever dealt with ghost shit before? Huh? Oh, you didn't know that ghosts take ghost shits, right? Well, they do. They take ghost shits. And they're the stinkingest, nastiest shit you've ever smelled in your fucking life. You're probably wondering how. Why would a ghost shit stink? It's ghost shit. No, it's spectral energy that forms into this ectoplasmic goo that becomes a solid physical mass in the plane of reality. And it's disgusting. It's fucking gross. This ghost turns around, turns his back towards us, begins to undo his suspenders. I'm sitting here like, no. Jane's just like, what is he doing? Jane, don't you know? You don't know what, you can't tell what he's going to do? I know what he's going to do. God damn it, I wish we could move, please. But movement was not coming to us. Not at this time. After he finished unfastening his suspenders, he dropped his pants. And then he dropped the second pair of pants that he was wearing under those pants. And then he dropped another pair of pants that he was wearing under the pair of pants that he was wearing under the pair of pants. Why he was wearing 3 pairs of pants, I don't know. Maybe it was cold during the time that he was traveling and, died and shit, so he had 3 pairs of pants on. But either way, this ghost had 3 pairs of pants on. And now he's got his bare ghost ass in our faces. He says, "See it how thou like it." And he shit. This green, gooey mass of ectoplasmic stink splattered upon the ground. Some of it got on my shoe. I was terrified. I thought maybe it might melt through my shoe because it smelled so bad. It smelled so fucking bad. Like you immediately retched just smelling it. Had I eaten something, I would have thrown up. But all I could manage was dry heaves. So me and freaking Jane are dry heaving our fucking guts up. Just, it was so bad. Meanwhile, we're gagging on the stench. All the while, I'm thinking about what's gonna happen to Jim when he gets up. Because I've got plans for his ass. I'm going to fuck him up something terrible for what he did. And you're thinking, well, he's laying in a puddle of his own shit. Yeah, but he's in a trance, knocked unconscious. The worst smell he's gonna have to smell when he wakes up is the smell of his own shit. But me and poor Jane over here are gonna have to forever remember watching a ghost take an ectoplasmic ghost shit, some of it splashing on my shoe, and the smell, which somehow just seemed to get in your nostrils and stay there. Like, it's like it made a fucking house in your nostrils. Just, hey, we're moving in. My name is Stench of Dead Man, centuries old. Now, you can smell me for as long as we want to smell to be in your nose. And that's what it's going to be. And that's what it was. You know, eventually we were no longer paralyzed and we were able to move. And as soon as we weren't paralyzed, he disappeared. But that godly, disgusting, nasty, smelly ass ghost shit was still there. And some of it, like I said, had splattered on my shoe. Now, I'm trying to wipe this shit off. Like, you know, when you step in dog shit and some of it splatters on top of the top of your shoe, how you try to wipe it off in grass. That wasn't helping. It seemed as if the more I tried to wipe this shit off, the worse the smell got. Ugh. 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 And I'm thinking to myself, we have a long ride back to drop me off at home. Not only am I going to have to smell this shit that's on my fucking shoe, but Jim is literally covered in his own shit. He didn't bring a change of fucking clothes or anything. And I highly doubt he's going to be driving back naked and shit. So, you know, this is what's going through my mind. This is exactly what's going through my mind. And I'm not too happy about it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm extremely pissed off. So, you know, Jim is still laying there in his own pile of shit. I pick up a rock. Not too big. I didn't want to hurt him. I just wanted him to wake the fuck up. I chuck it at him. Hit him. He's like, oh, what the hell happened? Shit. God damn it. What's that smell? Oh, God. Why am I in my own shit? What happened? I'm like, you want to know what fucking happened? You want to know what fucking happened? You son of a fucking bitch. You should have used the fucking porta potty at the beginning of the park. Like the ghost said. Oh, you wouldn't know anything about the ghost, would you? No, of course not, because for some strange reason, you passed out and were in some kind of trance. He's like, you want to know what happened? I'll be honest with you. That shit that I took was so stank and required so much pushing that I think I might have popped a blood vessel in my brain, straining to get it out, and I just passed out. Well, guess what? Apparently, you shit on some ghost fucking head. Yeah, that's right. You shit on a ghost head. And then that ghost came, paralyzed me and poor Jane here, and took a nasty ghost shit, some of which got on my damn shoe. And you don't know. You don't know what that smell is like, smelling a freshly extruded ghost turd from a ghost ass. Centuries of ghostly stink just erupted forth. In our fucking faces, Jim. In our fucking faces. I want to beat your ass right now. Not even fucking playing with you. If it wasn't for you taking your shit, we wouldn't have had to be subject to this ghost shit that we were subject to. I want to leave. I don't want to do any more fucking investigations of this place right now. I'm done. But what about the old mill? What about the fact that you've been laying in a pile of your own fucking shit for the past like 15 minutes? Aren't you more worried about that? That's gross and disgusting. We're leaving. Now, I want to be 100% honest with you people. Jim was dead ass serious about investigating more shit, no pun intended, while being covered in shit. Jane was not hearing it, I was not hearing it, just 2-1, and we got back in the van with all the windows rolled down, and we left before stopping at the gift shop, purchasing as many of those fucking air fresheners as possible. I even set a few of them on fire in the back seat. That's how fucking bad it was in there. I mean, the whole ride back just stunk. It was disgusting. You smell him. I smelled the shit that was on my shoe. Ugh. I think Jane might have even threw up a couple of times out the window, although what she managed to produce from her stomach beyond bile and fucking hydrochloric acid and spit is beyond me. Me, I just kept dry heaving the whole fucking entire time. So much so that my stomach just hurt terribly. You know, like the kind of pain you get from dry heaving a lot or laughing a lot. That's how it felt. My stomach had enough. it was terrible. I had like a 6-pack of abs from the amount of strain that my stomach had gone through that day. It was just a terrible, terrible experience. One that I'll never want to go through ever again as long as I live. So needless to say, I won't be going on any more ghost hunting adventures with Jim. Jane, she's okay. Jim, sorry buddy, I'm not fucking with you anymore. You don't know how to keep your shit to yourself. Well, you did a good job of keeping it to yourself after you shit on a ghost head, which I wouldn't advise, ever shitting on a ghost head. Don't do that, people. Don't do that, people. But I mean, if you are interested in going to Gay City State Park, by all means, do go there. Peruse the ruins, the old mill, the cemetery and shit. You'll find lots of stuff. But, please, if you feel the urge to use the restroom in any way, number 1 or number 2, or in Jim's case, number 3, do so at the porta potty that's, left the front of the gates for such things to happen. Just don't use the bathroom on the grounds of an old ghost town. It's just not advisable by any means. Just don't do it. Anyway, after I get dropped off to my house, the smell of that shit was still with me. The ghost shit was nasty and disgusting. I took off all my clothes outside in the backyard, threw them in the garbage. When I could still smell the smell an hour later, I decided that the best thing for me to do was to go ahead and burn them. And I did that. I burned the clothes, I burnt the shoes, I burned all that stuff. I showered for like 2 hours straight. Hot water. I'm talking about scalding hot. I must have gave myself like 1st-degree burns probably. I was burning myself up. I even grabbed some bleach and used bleach. Because I know what you're thinking. Don't do that. That's stupid. You don't wash yourself with bleach. If you smelled the stink-ass nasty shit that this ghost dropped, and some of it got on my shoe, and I could still smell it, you would wash yourself with whatever you could find in your house that you would think would get rid of the smell. And the only thing I could think of that would get rid of the smell is bleach. Bleach! Bleach! Bleach. Took about maybe a week before the smell finally dissipated to a level which was like maybe somebody farted nearby and you could smell it, which was bad enough. I remember Jane called me up. She's like, "Hey, Reese, how you doing?" Like, "Me? I'm okay. How are you?" She's like, "I can still smell it. I can still smell the shit." It's like, "Are you serious? You can still smell the shit?" "I can still smell the shit. Do you still smell the shit?" I was like, "Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I do. I bleached everything. I bleached myself." It's like, "So did I. Still smell it. It's not as bad as it was when it was bad, but it's still bad enough that I can smell it everywhere I go. I'm always walking around with a look on my face like something stinks." People are always like angry at me, like they think that, I think they stink. And then I start thinking maybe I stink. That ghost, the stink is haunting us. So in short, folks, don't shit on ghost heads. They don't like it. And if they ever catch you doing it, well, they'll punish you. They'll punish you with a supernatural paranormal shit that you'll never get away from. That's my story today.